And Representative Keith Ripp, the Republican incumbent, and his Democratic challenger Paula Cooper, joining me now. Thanks to both of you for taking the time to come down here and join us in studio. And Ms. Cooper, I want to start with you. You've been out campaigning, literally all summer. And to you, what is the defining issue in this race in your district right now?
I'm running on the four main issues of we need a family supporting jobs, quality health care that everyone can afford, education, we need decent quality schools, and our environment. If we do not protect our environment, we have absolutely nothing.
And Mr. Ripp, 2 terms now you've served, and of course the boundary lines are a bit redrawn now, but in 2008 you won a narrow victory in your district.
Yes.
How do you define priority number 1 now in your district as you move in towards a 3rd term if you can win re-election?
Priority number 1 is there again is same out doing doors, talking to the people of the district, getting input from them, seeing what hot topics are. A lot of it is jobs. Young people, are concerned. Once they're done with school or they're in the job market now, and they're having a hard time finding a decent paying job and something to support themselves with.
And Representative Ripp, that's exactly what we found as we visited your district. We heard a couple people tell us, just kind of seems like they're treading water when it comes to jobs. They aren't coming. There hasn't been really the change they've hoped. Do you have any ideas on how to bring that? What can you do to kind of bring some jobs and get that thing jump-started in your district?
Well, I think everybody looks at the state level and national level. On the state level, the government, first of all, it's very hard for government to create jobs, and it's really not their place. But last session, we did create an environment for employers, employees, to make it more friendly as far as business-friendly environment. And that's all we can do is create that environment that welcoming businesses here, making it easier to do business. From business owners, we hear a lot about red tape and regulations that really pull them down. Healthcare is one that's looming over a lot of them now, that the cost of the healthcare, what is it going to be? And so they're not just rushing out hiring people. A lot of them want to expand, but they're just kind of waiting to see what happens.
And Ms. Cooper, you've been pretty active on the Facebook page to help your campaign, and one of the things you've talked about there is cuts to education funding. Of course, nobody wants to cut education, but if the money's not there to spend, what's the alternative here? How can we jumpstart education? Because I don't think there's anybody that disagrees that that's a big component.
Well, the money is there. In the last budget, Governor Walker took away the enforcement of the combined reporting, otherwise known as the Las Vegas loophole. That's millions of dollars that Wisconsin is owed that we are not getting. I am not opposed to tax cuts either, but there has to be accountability for that, which the Republicans are not doing.
Representative Ripp, education funding. Is there any source for extra income or revenues to spend on it?
I think the numbers we're seeing now, the budget surplus, perhaps we can take a look at that, directing some of those funds there. Education is always a priority for a lot of us. Funding, the funding source, funding formula that we're using in the state is not working anymore, but we have to come up with a bipartisan agreement. The last one that was done basically by a government agency probably 20 years ago, and it's difficult to get people interested in trying to do something about it because it is a big challenge.
Let's talk about, you're both in a largely rural district, you both have farming backgrounds. In terms of jobs, what does it need most to thrive there in the agricultural community? What can we do to help farmers out there? Start with Representative Ripp, and then we'll get to you, Ms. Cooper.
I think we've done a lot of things because we are, a dairy state. It's a $59 billion. Agriculture is a $59 billion industry in the state. I think we've done a very good job. Many administrations in the past have done a good job of protecting that and keeping that vital. There again, it goes back to regulation and red tape always, that hinders farmers, businesses in the ag industry. But we certainly, keep an eye on that and try to keep moving forward.
Ms. Cooper?
Agriculture is certainly a big issue in this district. As Mr. Ripp knows, he's a farmer. We just need to help the farmers move along with their fields and, or not fields, but move along with, you know, the regulations and stuff, make it much easier for them to do their jobs.
Let's look at just kind of as we close here. You know, it's obviously been, there's a lot of differences between Republicans and Democrats as you look at this, the way this state operates. And let's start with you, Ms. Cooper. What can you do, as, if elected, to just kind of make sure do what you can to help both sides kind of get along, get some things done? Because I think that's something that frustrates a lot of voters statewide.
We have to start talking. Yeah, it doesn't matter if it's a Republican idea or a Democrat idea. If it is good for the state, let's do it. Let's start talking. Let's stop being one side, we're going to do this no matter what. The other side fights against it. If it's a good idea from Mr. Ripp, do it. If it's a good idea from a Democrat, do it. We got to do what's right for the people of this state. And that has not been happening.
Yeah, it hasn't, but I'm sure that's something a lot of folks, it's easier said than done. What have you experienced? I mean, how can you get that done? I mean, I think everybody would say that, but how do you get it done?
Well, you certainly, you know, I talk to my colleagues one-on-one, share my background, be a resource for them, and I also use them as resources. And we hear a lot of things, you know, that things aren't getting done in a bipartisan way. Last session, 96% of the bills that were passed had bipartisan support. And so there's a lot of that going on, but you don't hear about it. You know, a lot of work behind the scenes get done. Education bills that I've worked on with people from the other side of the aisle were successful. The governor signed them. So, I mean, there's a lot of it going on, that, but it just doesn't seem like we hear about it in the media as much as
we talk a lot about stuff like collective bargaining, and how do you guys see that playing out? I mean, if elected, is that something, Ms. Cooper, that you would expect to be dealing with, or is that settled? I mean, are we going to go back? And you know, obviously it's in the court systems now, but is that something the legislature can expect to deal with in the next term? Well,
we're going to have to wait until we see what the courts do with it, but I am in favor of collective bargaining. I think it improves the lives of everyone. Act 10, the governor's budget repair, that hurt a lot of people that didn't need to. There was not a budget deficit. It was created by giving tax cuts to the wealthy and corporations. And then we try to balance the budget on the backs of working people, teachers, firefighters. Come on, that's not right.
Mr. Ripp, I mean, is this something that you expect to deal with in the next term if elected?
I think it's always going to be on the radar. Me personally, I don't see collective bargaining coming back as it was, because it, you know, once you get into collective bargaining and then binding arbitration, a lot of people don't understand how that works, and I learned how it works, and that's why I don't foresee it coming back as it was. I think it may come back as in some other way, shape, or form, but it will not be the same as it was, I don't think, because we have to look at the taxpayers' ability to pay taxes and the cost to them, and then you know, we always hear about the word sustainability. We need to have a sustainable program both ways. There has to be a give and take there. Well,
Mr. Ripp, Ms. Cooper, thank you very much for joining us in studio today. Wish you best of luck, both of you, on election day.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Keith, thank you.